All right, this is Ubaid on behalf of V Electronics, and in this video, we'll be looking at our economic system based on globalization in a market economy. Okay, so starting off with some of the terminology or terms that we need to know. Okay, this is import and exports. So import has to do with goods and products or merchandise, goods and merchandise. They produce in a foreign country and brought into a country. So this is produce in a foreign country and brought into the country. So plus brought into a country. You could have a part relevant to your car or your SUV coming from another country, which could still be considered an import, even though it's not the finished product. It's not the complete car. Okay, you still have auto parts that get imported every now and then. Okay, which means if you consider an auto part is as good as an import. Okay, so import goods and merchandise usually produced in a foreign country and brought into a country, and then you have export. Okay, these are goods and merchandise that are produced in the home country. Okay, so goods and merchandise, so goods and merchandise produced in the home country. This is produced in the home country. Okay, and brought into a foreign country. So exported into a foreign country. And again, just with the previous example, just like your previous example, this doesn't have to be a finished product. It doesn't have to be the complete laptop, okay, the final assembly of the laptop. It may be parts relevant to a laptop. It could be the screen that gets exported, okay, to a foreign country for final assembly. It could be the battery, the laptop battery that gets exported. Okay, when it comes to cars, it could be the battery of the car, okay, that gets exported. Okay, it could be the engine that gets exported. Okay, so on and so forth. So you got exported into a foreign country. Okay, as long as this particular product contributes to your net exports, okay, adds to your GDP, okay, it would be considered an export. All right, whether it's a part, okay, part of the puzzle, part of the jigsaw, or okay, the finished product, the complete product. All right, so apart from import and exports, okay, you also have GDP, and we talked about GDP earlier. So this is your gross domestic product. Gross domestic product. And by definition, this has to do with value of all goods, value of goods and merchandise produced within an economy. Now, this doesn't have to be, okay, let's just say, okay, production. Okay, it can be government spending on infrastructure. It can be, okay, let's say consumption. Okay, so it could be part of consumption as well, because we know that GDP is technically proportional to your aggregate demand. Okay, it's directly proportional to aggregate demand. And because it's directly proportional to aggregate demand, okay, your GDP is net exports, which has to do with production, plus government spending and government transfers, indirect way of making a contribution to your GDP, so government transfers. And when it comes to government spending, this has to do with government spending on infrastructure. So highways, roads, okay, so on and so forth. Okay, you have personal consumption. So this has to do with consumption by households and individuals. So personal consumption. And you have, okay, capital expenditure. Okay, so this is capital expenditure. This is capital expenditure. All right, so net exports, government spending, personal consumption, and capital expenditure. These are four components of GDP and aggregate demand, as a result of which GDP doesn't really have to be production of all goods and merchandise. It can be government spending, it could be consumption, it could be investment, okay, by corporations and businesses. All right, however, by definition, gross domestic product has to do with value of goods and merchandise produced within an economy. All right. Now, apart from GDP, we know, okay, that the ratio, okay, of exports to GDP, so exports over GDP, will give us an idea as to how much of your GDP, how much of your total production gets exported to a foreign economy. Okay, so how much of the total production, how much of the total production gets exported to the economy, gets exported to the foreign economy. Now, this ratio may be important for analysis, okay, to figure out whether you need to increase production, whether you need to change your monetary and fiscal policies, okay, so on and so forth. Okay, so again, how much of total production gets exported to a foreign country, as a result of which it makes a contribution to your net exports. Okay, so apart from that, this is Ubay on behalf of V Electronics. Have yourself a great day.